Arivee, welcome to the MindShift Podcast. I can't believe we're here after 3 years since we've met. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
So let's tell everybody where we met and how we even got here, shall we?
Yes, let's do it. So we met at HPX Live in February 2020. HPX Live is an event that I don't think Brendan Burchard puts the event on anymore. I think that we went to one of the last ones, right?
I think we did. There was a lot going on that happened 30 days after we met.
Yes.
That little C word thing happened, right?
Yes. And by the way, it very soon after we met, because HPX Live was late February 2020, the last week of February. And then the world shut down 2 weeks later in March.
Yep. Yeah.
And we met so for those of you who've never been to HPX Live, it's basically like a personal development conference with thousands of people.
And on steroids, yeah.
Yeah, it's music, super fun, super deep. You meet a lot of really cool people. And obviously that's where we met. We met because we were in a group together, right?
A little breakout group, right? Good old Brendan Burchard and his breakout groups, which actually is a super powerful way to connect and meet with people. Because if an organizer and a facilitator like Brendan doesn't force you to do these groups, you probably stay in your lane when you're at these events, because it's intimidating. 2,000 people there roughly.
Yes. And I remember you telling me, you need to get certified as a high performance coach. And I said, oh, I don't know. And you were like, just do it. And I did. I
signed up. So, what's interesting is, these breakout groups were they were about 15 minutes. They're very structured. And we had to be on a timer, which also, I love the Pomodoro technique. For those that have listened to the show, I've mentioned it a number of times. The Pomodoro technique is sort of a technique where you give yourself a certain amount of time, typically 25 minutes, to do a task, and you stay focused on it for that 25 minutes. Some people will extend it to 50 minutes, but then afterwards you take a 5-minute break. What Brendan does for us in these events is he makes us high performers, connectors. He gives us activities, and each of us have 3 minutes to do the thing, whatever the thing is, right? And that's how we ended up in one of these groups. And then me being the kind of social butterfly, as my wife would call it, I'm taking photos of everybody, and I'm doing selfies in all these groups because I want to remember who I hung out with, right? And we were in one of those groups. Yes. So I thought your backstory was super fascinating. Let's tell everybody about that. So introduce yourself, tell them who you are, what you do, where you're from. Let's catch them up with.
Oh goodness, there's so much there. Okay, there's so much there. So again, my name is Arivee Vargas. I am a mother of 3 children. I say that first, not because I think it's my first identity, but I just thought of it first. A mother of 3. My son is 8. One of my daughters is going to be 6 next month, and my other daughter is 2. So I had a COVID baby. They say COVID babies. I did have one of those. Mm-hmm. And I am also the host of the Humble Rising podcast. I am a high performance coach, a life coach, really focused on women of color and first generation women to help empower them to live the life and have the career that they want. That's aligned with who they are, and that brings them joy and fulfillment. I am also very involved in a host of other things in the community. I am a senior director in HR at a biotech company, and I love that as well. But a lot of what I do is rooted in my past. So I grew up a daughter of Dominican immigrants. So I was born and raised in the United States, but my parents are from the Dominican Republic, and my whole family is from the Dominican Republic. So I grew up very much, I would say, like bicultural, where I was very Dominican traditional at home, but then I went to school. I went to an all-white school, essentially an all-white school, K through 8, and had to learn how to navigate being in between 2 cultures, feeling like I wasn't American enough and I wasn't Dominican enough, right? I wasn't born in DR, so I'm not Dominican enough, but I'm not American. Clearly, I eat rice and beans and chicken every day, and it's very different. And I remember always struggling with identity. like wanting to belong, never feeling quite like I fit in anywhere. And taking that to high school similarly, but a little different because of a little bit more diversity, but not really, but always being one of the few. Like that was always a narrative for me, is one of the few, and feeling the need to prove myself, because I did go into high school with 2 years behind in a few subjects and had to work my way up. And again, I always felt like I was pushing myself to prove myself that I deserved to be there. And I always had this feeling like, if I mess up, I'm messing it up for my family. I'm messing it up for like the whole Latino community. I'm messing it up for so many people, because growing up, the theme was sacrifice. You sacrifice to get an education. You sacrifice to be successful. And so I internalized that. And I'm like, yeah, you have to work really hard, and sometimes really, really hard to get what you want. And my family taught me so much about just work ethic and values of, humility. And humility, I know people throw shade on humility. Humility to me just means you have room to grow and you recognize that. It doesn't mean that you cower. It doesn't mean any of that to me. But they taught me kindness, humility, the importance of relationships and family, and of working hard for what you want. And that has carried me through my entire career as a lawyer. I went to law school, went to college and went to law school, became a lawyer, frankly ended up in a law firm because I didn't know what else to do. I'll be very honest about that. I didn't know what else to do. And when you don't come from a ton of money, when you go to a law firm and you make a lot of money, you're like, oh my gosh, they're paying me all this money. And it's a totally different life. Like I was in culture shock most of my life, but at the law firm, it was very much like that. And then I got focused on my craft. I was like, I need to be the best lawyer again, be one of the few, prove myself. I can't mess this up for other Latinos because there were no other Latinos where I was. Like it's very difficult to see, especially Latina lawyers in the spaces that I occupied. And so again, always looking for who can help me navigate this. And I had incredible mentors. I had incredible people to help me. How can I stop identifying myself solely as a lawyer and as a hard worker and as just a human being? Like, how do I take care of myself? All of that, fast forward, I had a bunch of different shifts between going to law firm when I got out of law school and today, but essentially switched roles, I would say 5 times or so, from lawyer to law clerk, back to lawyer at the law firm, then in-house to be a lawyer and compliance professional, and then into HR as I'm doing this coaching that I do for women, first generation women of color.
Mm. Oh, wow. That's rich. That's rich. First of all, great parents. They taught you humility, work ethic, right? That that comes through in what I remember from our brief meeting, because I met, like you did, at least 100 people during that event over 4 days, either by force, yeah, that's right. or on purpose, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not actually connected to all those people. And this is the first time you and I have connected since, but we've been connected on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And I think you might have even at one point, because we did join, I had a little, we kind of formed a little mastermind with folks who had attended that event. Yes. And we kept that little mastermind group going for probably a good solid year and a half, because we wanted to kind of stay around people. High performers tend to want to do that. People that tend to want to move forward in life and help and inspire and impact and, shift beliefs. We'd like to kind of stick together and kind of talk about our little world of geekiness. Yes. Because some people, it's not their thing. Like they're happy being good themselves. And of course, we believe that if we're good, we can also help someone else be good if they're seeking, right? Mm-hmm. Talk to me about your coaching. You became a coach not long after going to that event. So talk to me about the process, the thought process of being a coach. What gave you the passion to want to, what made you realize that coaching was your thing?
So I became a high performance coach in 2020. I got certified, but I had already been a life coach certified through, it was called Journey at the time, and now it's called Lumia, and it's a positive psychology curriculum, so it's evidence-based in that way. And so I had done that 2 years prior. So I had been coaching, not with a framework, because high performance coaching is a framework, right? There are these pillars of high performance, and you coach on those specific pillars, and it is evidence-based. So I'd been doing that, and what prompted me to do coaching generally was I had been coached. So I had been going through some, I would say like identity crises, probably like when I started having children, and wondering why I felt like there was something more in me I wasn't tapping into, right? Like I was having an identity crisis related to, again, my identity was wrapped up in my work, and my worth was wrapped up in my performance and my productivity. And then when I had my first child, when you're on maternity leave, which I was privileged to have, I recognize not all women get that, which I think is a right. It shouldn't be a privilege, right? But I had that maternity leave, and work as a sense of worth was taken away from me. And it felt like the rug was taken from under me. And I was like, wait, so I'm just a mom right now? And I know some moms out there are like, oh my gosh, but yeah, I didn't feel the way about motherhood like everyone thought I probably should feel. Like I was like, hey, but I love working, and I love making an impact. And now I don't have that source. I'm just a mom. Like, what am I supposed to do? Just like sit here and watch him, feed him? Like this is boring, and I'm tired and I'm sleep deprived. So I also, though, it was a blessing to have that leave, because with more space, with more mental space, I started thinking about why am I so bothered by the fact that I get this 6 months with my son? Like, why am I so bothered by the fact that work is the center of my life? Like, why? Okay, it's because I don't want it to be. Like, I started asking myself questions, I started getting curious. And I also started thinking about what I really like to do. Right. Like I love researching, writing. I love speaking. I love connecting with people and sharing stories. I've always loved mentoring younger generations and being like an advisor to people. I love that. People ask me for advice all the time. I love that interaction. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious about people and how they process things. And for me, that was when I started digging a lot deeper into personal development. So I read Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. I read Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. I started listening to podcasts about what are the questions I'm supposed to be asking myself? Like, I don't even know how to do this work. And then I got a coach, and everything changed. I'm like, oh, I have someone I can talk through this stuff with. Oh, okay. Because when I read a book, I can do the book, like I can do the exercises, but I mean, it's just me. It's me in my head. And sometimes that can be a little dangerous, right? You need an unbiased perspective sometimes. That's right. Yeah. And I ended up getting coached, and I said, oh, this is a thing. I'm going to do this thing because I know I can help other women through not just what I've been through, because as a coach, right, it's not about you, but your experience does matter. Like I think people resonate with you and your experience. And so I was like, oh, and I went through my own transformation of going from, I feel like I was playing small, right? And not in my worth. And I went from that to over time, I would say it was a long time, right? It's a journey, and I'm still not fully there yet, but it's a journey where I felt like good in my own skin. I felt like I kind of know that I need to do something else. Okay, now what does that look like? Okay, help me map this out. And a coach helped me do that. And that's why I became a coach. I was like, oh, I got to do this for other people because I know there's a need for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Tell me, what made you hire that coach? Take us to the leading up to, like, I always say that by the way, I have coaches that are clients, people that come to our marketing agency that are coaches. And I always say to them, no one's awake at 11 o'clock at night and says, tomorrow I'm going to hire a coach. I don't think. I'm a coach as well. I don't think that's what's going through their mind. But talk to us a little bit about, because I know I hired my first coach in 2003, and I know what led to that decision. but it wasn't because I woke up the next morning and said, "Hey, on Tuesday, I'm going to hire a coach." Right?
No.
I want you to talk about this because you're a coach, but you said once I saw the impact of what coaching did for me, I knew I wanted to explore this. So let's go back a little step, and what you don't have to get into the details of what was going on, but what sort of on an outlier basis was happening that said I might need a coach and led you to that decision?
I will be 1000% transparent and say I just had enough of trying to figure it out by myself. Like I reached a point of I know I need to talk through this with someone. It became urgent. So you're right. It wasn't that the next day the one night I was like, tomorrow I'm going to reach out to people. No. I think I was on LinkedIn or I was on some platform and I had been following certain people. This is what happens. People stalk people. Like you stalk them in silence and then they're resonating with you. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ping this person. And then that's how it started for me. Like it was a sense of urgency, a sense of what's at stake if I don't do this. Cause what was happening was I was in my head too much and spinning my wheels.
Let me stop you right there. Say that phrase one more time. You said, what's at stake if I don't do this?
Yes. What's at stake if I don't do this? Yeah. And for me, it was more confusion and no progress. And I didn't want that. Like I wanted to, and I didn't know where I wanted to go, but I knew that I was stuck and confused and I was spinning wheels, and I knew that I was spinning my wheels long enough to know, okay, I think I've reached the point where I've done everything I could by myself. So now I know I need someone else to come partner with me and help me.
Oh gosh. The three words that I always say that triggers almost any massive change, at least in my life, and I've seen it in others, and I've learned it from being around enough people who have broken through. MindShift Podcast and the MindShift mantra is, this journey from inspiration to realization, or when life knocks us down, from breakdown to breakthrough. And, all of that can mean anything to anybody and how it means, but we all go through it on both sides. But the three words that always seem, and I heard you didn't say these words, but this is what I heard. Enough is enough.
Yes.
Enough is enough. And you also said something else that I think is super important. And I think it is the key to unlocking growth and breakthrough and achievement. And that is, I really think this word is a superpower when we do it right. And we got it at as kids. Somewhere along the way, we lost it. But as kids, we were always curious.
Yes.
And somehow, if we become adults and regain that curiosity when things are not quite right, you said that like 4 times in this conversation thus far, being curious unlocks amazing things because it's telling you wouldn't be curious if you weren't unsettled. You weren't curious if you didn't want change. You aren't curious if you weren't unfulfilled in some sort of way, if there was no problem that was sort of grabbing at you. And so I just wanted to take a second and highlight a couple of those keys because that is what I heard you say. And I was like, very reflective. So enough is enough is what kind of led you to that person. What do you find? First of all, why did you become an attorney? I'm just always curious about like the choice to go into law.
So again, I'll be transparent here again. I feel like as I'm reaching my 40s, I'll be 40 this year. I have cared less and less about the fear of judgment, right? So that's why I'll say like I'm going to be transparent. It's me telling my mind it's okay to share. That's what I'm doing out loud.
I hear you. Come on, let's go. Let's go.
So yes. So I initially, when I was in college, I actually had thought about being a professor in sociology because at that time I was doing a lot of research around education inequity, specifically impacting the Latino community. I was very passionate about that. It's what I focused my entire college career, frankly, studying. And it was very close to my heart. And I had explored that with certain professors were like, you need to do this, you would be great. And me being like, yeah, I kind of have this thing though. Like I said, I was going to go to law school since I was 11, and it's like this thing. And I think I have to do that. And they would say, why? And I said, well, like if I get my PhD, I'm going to be poor, and I can't be poor because like my family doesn't have a ton of money, and I don't want to be freaking poor. Like I hear that a lot today from a lot of people I talk to in college. Like especially first generation, especially when you don't come from old wealth or like your parents didn't, pay for every single thing for you. It's money, a relationship with money can be really complicated.
It is you could preach on that for 30 minutes, but we'll come back to that. Yes. It's a big deal.
Yes. And so for me, going to law school I couldn't not go because it's a promise I had made to myself. And I knew what it meant. Again, remember, I always felt like one of the few, always felt in between. And going to law school is like, I got to do this for myself, for my family, for me, for my community, like to prove that we can do that. And that's something that we're capable of. And so I was like, I'm going to be the one. I'm used to that. I'm going to do it again. And so there was a pride element in there. And then, I thought about what being a sociology professor would be and getting my PhD there. And I said, we're not in that space a lot, but like, I feel like we need to be in these other positions, and I don't have to be studying education inequity to be impacting that in my life. Like I knew that I didn't have to do that for my full-time job. Now, of course, I got some flack for that from certain people in my community, but I decided, you know what, I could still address the things I want to address and spend time in spaces where people are working towards something that matters to me, and be a lawyer basically defending big companies is like what most you do in a law firm. So I went to law school because it was something that I had wanted to do. I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't really know what that meant though. Like I had watched Law and Order, loved it. I had spent some time in courthouses, like observing lawyers, but I didn't really know what it meant because what I ended up doing at a law firm, I had never seen anyone do in my life.
Right.
So it was all new and unfamiliar. But again, you have people that are a little older than you that show you the ropes, that tell you, okay, watch out for this, do that, don't do that. And so my whole life has been like learning as I go and leaning into discomfort and freaking out in my mind, but then outwardly being like, I got it. And then eventually I believed it, that I had it,
That's interesting. So can you talk to us about your coaching model? I know it's proprietary, so I know you can't break it all down here, but can you talk about how you work with your clients through your coaching process? Maybe a high-level outline.
Yeah.
Because I think there are people listening, and if they are listening to you right now and they're thinking about, they're curious, they feel stuck, they're in a place where they're looking for answers, right? That level of curiosity, and they may be where they're saying enough is enough, and maybe they're listening to you right now, but they don't know what coaching looks like. They don't know what it means. They don't know. It's kind of esoteric, right? So I'm going to give you money, and you're not a doctor, and I'm not going to lay down on a couch. What, right? And I'm sure in most cases you're doing it virtually, right? Yeah. So talk to people about your coaching business model and how you actually work with your clients.
Sure. So first I want to say that I have many people that reach out to me for discovery calls, and on the call, it's clear to me they're looking for a mentor, not a coach.
Ooh, it is. What's the difference?
So a mentor is someone you go to for guidance and advice based on their experience. And in the conversation, they typically will share with you what they think you should do. And they could have a conversation with you where they're like, oh, what would you like to do? Well, here's what I think about that, right? It could be more conversational, but it's still grounded in you have this mentor that has some experience you don't have or that you want to have, and you want to leverage that experience and their expertise and their network. It is very specific and purposeful. A mentor is more about guidance, advice, sharing with you. You can ask them for advice. A coach, their job is not to give you advice. The idea there is that the best answers are already within you, and the coach's job is to get them out of you so you can see them for yourself. And people always say to me, wait, but if they're inside of me, like, why can't I just like figure that out? And I'm like, well, why are you here? Because you haven't been able to do that. And that's okay. But the coach's job is to get you to a result, an outcome, a goal. Like, that's the coach's job, is to help you get there in partnership with you. The mentor can help you get to a goal, but it's do a totally different way. It's like, here's some advice. Here's what I think. And a coach, I think the best coaches don't offer advice. They may cheerlead you. They may share a perspective, but they get you to realize things and own things about your life and get you to understand why you need to change them, make you create the framework in your mind, make you create what will be the catalyst to change. And you do that on your own, but the coach is there to support that journey. It's a very different way of moving through the world. And I will tell you, most people don't fully understand coaching for that reason. And they reach out because of that. They see my content. They're like, oh, I want you to coach me. And I'm like, let's have a conversation first. And 8 times out of 10, they want someone, they like want me to guide them through life. And I'm like, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah. No, it's a great way to put it. I love the way you broke that down. It's so interesting. You know, the words all get thrown around seemingly semantically, and they're not. Coaching, mentoring, advisory, consulting. The words seem to all, they're not the same. That's and right. I love the way you put the mentoring, though. It's like the mentor is telling you based on their experience, and you're saying, I just want you to tell me what to do. And you're right. In coaching, it's like we help them unlock the answers for themselves, because only when they're committed to their own answers. See, with mentorship, come on. See, how many times have we've been in mentorship agreements or where we misunderstood mentorship? We tell a person what to do, they go off and don't do it, but then they come back and ask for more advice, and you ask them if they did the thing that you told them to do in the first place, and they say, no, I didn't do that yet. Right. But then why are you back talking to me about, coaching is like there's more commitment in the resolution because they actually are unlocking the answer for themselves.
That's right.
And you're guiding them through it. You probably are using your experience in your model and your questioning. Sure. But there's more, I believe there's more buy-in when you're in a coaching arrangement because the person feels like they actually solved their own problem in a way.
Exactly.
With the help of your guidance through the Q&A. So it is interesting. I remember my first coach, and one of the first big breakthroughs I had with my coach, she didn't do a damn thing. I did all that. She just, let me tell you, I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm just saying, but she knew exactly what to ask me to get me to feel and decide and to act.
That's right.
That was her job. The work I had to do. I had to go back and do the work on my business at the time. She didn't fly down from wherever she was and come sit in my office and say, oh, yeah, as a consultant does the work with you. Come on, anyway, that was funny. Anything else to add on that? That's super.
No, consultant gives you a deliverable. They're giving you a deliverable. That's right. So that's right. If you went to a consultant, help me with my life, they'd give you a deliverable, like a PowerPoint on this is what you need to do. That is not.
They give you a 20-page booklet or whatever the case is. And we're not downplaying, by the way, not downplaying mentorship, not downplaying, but these are different pillars in growth.
That's right.
And you might need them at different levels. So very good, very good, very good.
And then, for coaching, and this probably will highlight the difference a little bit more too. My framework is a 4A framework. So it's assess, activate, ask, and align. And assess is about assessing where you're at, taking stock of where you are. And that involves 2 main things, which is recognizing the season of life you're in. Season of life meaning, do you have children? Do you not have children? Do you have young children? Are you accelerating your career? Where are you in that journey of life? Right. And then also assessing where you're at in terms of your life satisfaction, the different areas of your life, and being honest about that. Because we talked a little about getting curious and asking questions. And I find one of the biggest obstacles with the women that I have spoken with and worked with is you have to be willing to be honest about your answers. And the problem is that when you have type A, high achieving, high performing women, they can't sit on knowledge. They have to do something with it. And that bothers them when they don't do something about it. Mm-hmm. So that's why we get to the assess is about like a radical honesty, essentially, of where you're at, really, truly where you're at. And then with activate, I'm talking about your core values, what gives you a sense of meaning and purpose, and what your strengths are, and how can you leverage that. And then we go on to ask, which is ask what your vision is for your life. Now, clients are all different. I don't believe we should all do the 20-year vision, the 10-year vision. Everyone is very different. So we focus on a period of time, and then it is what do you want your life to look like? What's the best year in your life? What does that look like for you? We do different exercises there for that, because we want to get clear on what are you driving towards, and then how are your goals going to fit into that to get you there. And then the last piece is align, which is how do I align all that's inside of me that I've worked through already to what I'm doing out there, to how I'm behaving, the decisions I'm making. This involves trade-offs, compromises, right? We can't have everything all at once. I don't believe we can. I think everything has trade-offs, and there are compromises you have to make. But if they are aligned with your values and your priorities and what you know you need to change and focus on right now, then you know you're doing it in integrity with who you are, and it's more fulfilling. And so that's what I really work on with women, is I really focus on that framework. And I also use the high performance framework for certain clients as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Seasons of life, you said, it's a perfect, two things you said there that I just start at the beginning and sort of the end cap. Seasons of life. We all walk through seasons of life. Mm-hmm. We walk through seasons in weather. Like there's winter, spring, summer, fall, and there are different things happening in each of those seasons. And sometimes when seasons of life hit us, we don't recognize what you said later, which is that during this season, I have to make some compromises.
That's right.
Right. During this season, I have to make some concessions. During this season, I have to go harder than I normally would. And I think what you probably recognize as well is that sometimes the season you didn't sign up for. Like the season just happened, right? You might have done nothing wrong except the wind just started blowing or the hurricane came in, right? We all went through that 3 years ago. We were at an event, and within 30 days, the world shut down. We were jumping on chairs, hugging, high-fiving. It was one of the most powerful events. That was the second time I've been there. Yep. And then the world comes to seemingly an end. There was no toilet paper. I know the video I walked through a Walmart. I remember taking a video walking through Walmart. I'm like, where are we? What is this? Yeah. It was, I mean, it's funny now. It wasn't funny then, right?
No, it wasn't. No, but looking back and what's interesting about that and with seasons is I find that the one of the biggest shifts you have to make in terms of your mindset is accepting that's the season you're in. Especially when it happens, like it's unexpected. It's, okay, I continue to resist this and fight this, but that is not going to help me deal with it or manage it. I have to accept this is where I am. And I think that's so important. It's not about resignation. It's about accepting this is where I am. So what am I going to do to manage and move forward?
She's preaching the MindShift method, y'all. You heard that. She just gave you step 1 and 2. Let me repeat slowly for those that don't know. She said, accept the season you're in. We call that make peace with the facts. Come on now. And then she said, you just have to, it's not resignation. I love the way you said that. It's not resigning. It's not giving up. It's not throwing the towel in. It's like, oh, no, something's out of whack right now. Or the wind is blowing right now. So right now, if I was going to go, it's about to rain over here in Vegas. If I decide to wash my car today, that's just not a good decision today. It's just not a good decision. I can't change the fact that it might rain today. So the second part of the MindShift method, which she said so eloquently, is let's now make a new decision based on this season, or what I call the facts. So I love first of all, I love talking to high performers. Number one, it's kind of why I wanted to have you on the show, which you dodged the show, by the way. Let me tell everybody.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You easily dodged being a guest on the show for a solid 8 months, 12 months, something like that. We're not going to let you get off the hook on that. I get it. No, I'm playing. You were in a season.
Yes, I was in a season.
But I'm super glad we had a chance to share today. I would love for you to share where people can connect with you. By the way, you tell them where your LinkedIn is, because I think what you're doing on LinkedIn and how you're sharing and how you're inspiring. I'm not on LinkedIn all that much, but I'm seeing a lot more of your posts when I pop on. But I think that's a really good place. And then share anywhere else you would like people to connect with you, follow you. And we'll come back and talk a little about your Humble Rising podcast to wrap things up.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn for me is my primary platform. So if you go to Arivee space Vargas, which is Vargas, you'll find me on LinkedIn. I should pop up. And my content really is focused on motivating, inspiring, and empowering women, especially women of color and first generation women. People have said, oh, it applies to me too. And of course it can, but that's who I'm talking to. And I have people in my mind I'm talking to when I post. I also share about being a mother and managing all the things we manage. And I share personal stories too of my family, in the hopes of creating a space where we don't see professional as so rigid and formal and devoid of humanity. And I think like people need more of that, need more of the humanity in their professional lives, because we do not leave our personal at home or, with family when we go to work. Like, we take all of us with us. So I'm trying to kind of shatter that misconception with LinkedIn. And then I'm on Instagram as well. Same name. You'll find me easily. Arivee is an original name. I don't think anyone has that name. So you'll find me. And you can always catch me on my website, which is ariveevargas.com. And I have the Humble Rising podcast as well. And you can get that on any platform where you get your favorite podcasts.
Amazing. That's actually why I wanted you to share your LinkedIn, is because what I noticed was the humanity, the human side of you, the mother side of you, the real life with what's going on with your kids inside of you. And I think you're epitomizing this idea of building a professional, personal brand, right? I always say that personal branding gets kind of a weird rap, right? And we think it's about being famous or having 1 million followers. No, it's not about that. It's about connection. It's about, do people know, like, and trust you? And do they know, like, and trust you, not just because you want to do business with them or they want to do business with you, but are you adding value in such a way? And again, it's outside of law. It's outside of what you do in coaching. And so that's what I did notice in your social, is you're sharing just real life. And you just finished with something that I truly believe in. And I think more people need to interact. I just had a meeting yesterday, quite honestly, with a lawyer who's a client of mine. And we were doing a video shoot for her social, and she's just very all about the business.
Yes.
And I said, unfortunately, no one cares about the business. And if all you publish on social media is, you're brilliant and you do great work and you're great in the community and you've won the awards, and all of that is true. But until and unless they need that at the moment they see the post, it's not giving them a chance to really get to know who you are. And what if someone doesn't need you, but they happen to know someone who needs you, and all it is about the business? And so anyway, I'm a big believer in people that provide professional services showing some of their personal side. And you can decide what that is for you.
That's right.
But anyway, Arivee, what a pleasure having you on the MindShift Podcast today. I'm so glad we met 3 years ago or so, a little bit more than 3 years ago, and continue to do the work. I love the fact that you used, and I think we all do this to a certain degree, you used some of your personal journey has inspired your work, which means it isn't a career. Law was a career, right? But today you're working more out of passion and purpose. And that's what I've heard today. And I think I've seen that over the last couple of years of your posts. And I would love to have you back in the future and stay connected with you and your brand and the work that you're doing. And what would you tell, as we wrap up, I've got 2 questions last. What would you tell the person listening who might be sitting where you are sitting, maybe in some sort of identity. I'm not sure if this community accepts me. I'm not sure if that community, I want to be this, but I'm over here in this. Give them 30 seconds of something that they can leave with.
That's such a great question. I would say first, get quiet. Get quiet and find a space for yourself, because your brain needs space. You need space to think. You can't be thinking of this in 10 minutes, right? Go somewhere by yourself, quiet space, and ask yourself, very, very frankly, ask yourself, what is it that I need right now? What do I need right now? And it could be like, oh, I need to figure this out. Okay, what's one step I can take to figure this out right now? And then go to the second one. Be like, okay, I read the books. Okay, what's the next step? How will that help me to get to figuring this out? Because I don't think, and I have found this to be 1000% true in my own life and in people that I work with, you are not going to get clarity by just picking something. Like, it doesn't happen that way. It's more like an engagement, a trial and error, an experimentation, an exploration, and then you get more clear as you go. So one thing I will always say is like, what do I need right now? What do I need most right now? And I always love the question, what do I want the most in this moment? And that's scary to people because people often pick something that's like off the charts. And that's the point, because you're showing yourself I'm way off. So how can I get a little closer?
Whew. That's wow. That's amazing. Arivee Vargas, thank you so much for being on the MindShift Podcast, and continue the work that you're doing, continue inspiring women, continuing living your truth. I want to celebrate you too quickly also for pivoting, right? You didn't know what it meant to be a lawyer. I heard you say, like, I felt like I had to do it and I had to do it because I said I was going to do it. And gosh darn it, I did it. But boy, I'm not sure that that's my jam for the rest of my life. And so I love the pivoting, and you've articulated it and you've lived it. And I believe you do that own inflection work, which has brought you to this point. So thank you so much for sharing some time with us here on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I hope to come back again soon. I won't make you wait 8 months next time. Okay.
It sounds good. So great meeting you 3 years ago. And I'm glad we had some time today.
Thanks so much.
Hey, it's Darrell Evans. Hit the subscribe button so you can become a part of the MindShift community. We'll help you shift your mind so you can shift your results.